Is this the thing that concerns radioactive decay?
Yeah. Well, they talk about accelerated decay methods and things like that. They actually talk about physical scientific models that can explain this. They're not just saying God did it. So, I mean, have you actually looked at the Rate Project writings?
Not at the writings. I've read about it a little bit.
Okay, I mean, I'm trying to be sweet here, but I think you're making a prejudgment without even looking at what they're actually doing with this project. They're going to have the results of the Rate Project out this year, and they're also going to have, and I doubt you need this, but a layman's version of this for people out there who just don't really grasp all the high-end stuff, because that's what it is. It's all scientific papers. I got the book in my bathroom, and that's, the book is insanely, high-end.
Okay, so it is about radioactive decay?
Yeah, he talks about, there's several different, the whole thing's about radioactive decay. It's radioisotopes in the age of the Earth. Russell Humphreys is working on models with PhD, well-established geologists who've written in peer-reviewed secular journals as well. And they're actually looking at different methods of accelerated nuclear decay, things that can completely throw uniformly some clocks off. I mean, it's all actually dealing with physical science that you can test. Joe Meert, who is a geologist who works on the Gondwanaland research team over at the University of Florida, has criticized them, and they've written back in a completely scientific manner and responded to every one of his criticisms.
Well, I can't comment on whether it was scientific or not since I haven't seen it or read it.
Okay, well, you've already accused him of doing non-science, so you've already...
Who, ICR?
Yeah.
ICR definitely puts out pseudoscience. I've read plenty of their articles on their website from Dwayne Gish and other
You just said you couldn't comment on that because you haven't read it.
No, hold on. Don't put words in my mouth. That specific thing that's just coming out, I can't comment on.
Okay, well, that's what I'm talking about right there.
But ICR in general, yes, I have read plenty of their material, and every single bit of it has been pseudoscience.
Well,
I don't know if we can help you then.
Every single bit of it, okay.
That I have read. When I read Dwayne Gish talking about paleontology, it makes me just my skin crawl. The guy has no concept of paleontology.
He's 84 years old, been studying this probably since before your dad was conceived, and you'd have to talk to him. I guess give him a chance to defend himself. If this is America, call him up. Their number is 619-448-0900.
That's Dwayne Gish's number?
That's the ICR's number.
Oh, really? That's wonderful.
Yeah. 619-448-0900, and call him up and ask him. He still has an office there. I mean, he retired, but he still comes in. He's 84.
So yeah. I wanted to talk about the age of the Earth. That was actually what I wanted to call in about. But before we talk about that, okay. Jonathan, I wanted to say one more thing. That was I wanted to clarify something that happened, I think in the last call that I had with y'all.
Okay.
Which was when I used the word creationist, and I said I want to hear or see a real scientist talk about that, and then you jumped all over me for saying that. And you asked me if the guy who invented the MRI machine was a scientist.
One of the pioneers, Dr. Raymond Damadian, pioneer of the MRI, yes.
This is a subtlety of the language that I didn't realize until the call was over, which is that whenever I use the word creationist, it's almost like if I were writing it down, I'd be using a capital C or something. When I say creationist, I usually mean somebody whose profession it is to spread creationism. That's not the same thing as somebody who is like a physicist or an astronomer who happens to be a creationist, in that they believe in the Bible or that God created everything or whatever. They're two very different categories.
I would disagree on many parts, but that's all right.
I wouldn't call Isaac Newton a creationist.
Would you call Raymond Damadian a creationist?
I don't know who that is.
That's one of the pioneers of the MRI that I was talking about, received Nobel Prize and so forth.
I don't think so, because I haven't seen his name come up within creationist circles in the evolution versus creation debate.
If you read the ICR material like you said you would, or like you said you do, then you would see it come up. I mean, the guy is very well known. He goes to practically all of their conferences. I don't think he speaks a whole lot on the subject, but he is, very open about it.
I haven't read all of ICR's material, man. Come on. They have hundreds or...
Well, I'm not telling you to read all of it, but I mean, he's mentioned many times in ICR's material, Answers in Genesis material. Actually, Answers in Genesis has 2 books out just recently. One's called The Genesis Files, which actually has a full biography of Dr. Damadian in there.
Does he write articles for them, though?
I don't know if he writes articles for them, but there have been a lot of interviews with him and biographies of him.
Okay, but that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who put out material, who put out creationist material. That's who I'm calling creationist.
Like Russell Humphreys, who worked for and retired from Sandia National Laboratories, and John Baumgartner, who's one of the world's most respected, I guess, geological programmers.
Geological programmer?
Well, programming flood models and stuff like that.
On plate subduction, stuff like that. He's got some incredible models.
He's respected by the secular scientists for being excellent at that. And he's, speaks all the time and writes articles, yet he's a fully employed in the secular government-supported, industry doing secular science.
And he's a young Earth creationist?
Yes.
I'll have to look into that.
Now, here's the danger, though. Hey, Jared, you or somebody like you, when they find a person who is a creationist in a position like this, they will seek for some way to get them fired. Just like in the Soviet Union, so that if a teacher says, I don't believe in communism, somebody's going to turn him into the KGB, and they're going to try to get him off to Siberia.
Well, there's also, our caller talked about yesterday, Michael Ord, who worked with the National Weather Station as meteorologist for, I think, 30 years with the National Weather Station as a meteorologist, and he's a young Earth creationist as well. And the National Weather Station trusts this guy's scientific knowledge of meteorology.
Yeah, meteorology, really, you don't have to know anything about evolution to do meteorology.
No, but meteorology is still one of the applicable sciences that you can really benefit from knowing, especially about the Earth and the atmosphere and so forth.
Of course. Like I said, I don't think that just because somebody believes that God created everything, or in that sense they're a creationist, that they're not a scientist. I have never said that.
No, I know that.
I've repeatedly stated that I don't think that. And I don't say anything about the intelligence of these people either. I don't think that way. I'm talking about their attitude with the nature of science and what they do in the public eye.
Okay, I understand how that many people feel that science can only deal with the natural world, so when you bring in the supernatural, you have less science.
No, I don't think that either, Kent.
Well, I think many scientists do think.
I know they do,
okay.
And I disagree with them. And I would say that if God exists and he decides to have himself manifest in a way which is accessible by science, then of course we could discover it. It's just that we never have. There's a big difference between just nobody ever has.
You're not.
I would have read about it.
No, you're not convinced of what people feel is very convincing.
If God wanted to step down and make himself known to scientists, he could do it, couldn't he?
He could, yeah. But
he has decided not to do that.
Well, not necessarily.
Have you ever met Picasso, the artist?
Never met him. I know about him. Yeah.
How do you know about him? See his works.
Because I was an art major.
Sure. Okay, you don't have to meet him to believe he exists. You can see what he did and say, well, you can learn a lot about him just by studying his works.
Yep, and I saw paintings of his that are signed Picasso on them. I've never seen a work signed by God.
Well, I wouldn't expect God to write
the Bible where he said, thus saith the Lord? I mean, that's thousands of times in the Bible.
There's no reason for me to believe that it was not Israelites saying, thus saith the Lord.
Well, there's no reason to believe it wasn't my neighbor making the painting calling it Picasso.
Yeah, and there are fakes, and there are methods to tell whether it's a fake or not. And whenever people examine the Bible, they come to the conclusion that it was humans that wrote it, and that it was culturally inspired, just like every other set of religious texts in the world.
Well, I have read the Bible a whole bunch of times, and I guess I come to the conclusion that this is a God-inspired book. I don't see how anything could, 40 different authors over 3 continents in 1,500 years could have no contradictions.
Yeah, and that's not how I see it.
Have you ever studied, you're a numbers guy, have you ever studied the numerology in the Bible?
I've read about it, yeah.
You've read about it? How do you explain, dozens of authors from completely different places in the world over thousands of years, having all of their writings correlated so perfectly with numerology?
Make a statement that I can actually answer. I mean, you correlate.
Let's see here. Look at the number. Is it 40? Is always used by every author in the Bible who's written using number 40 with a time of testing. You have David, who before he went out and fought Goliath, presented himself 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's
how do you explain?
Program's over. Do it again tomorrow. Thanks a lot, Eric, for calling. Tomorrow, folks. Thanks a lot.